The Purchase Orders module, when purchased and registered, is used to provide a printed or emailed purchase order for your vendor. It's also used to manage the orders that you have placed. When a purchase order is used for an inventory item, the system will record the item as on order, but it will not affect the quantity on hand. Sales orders can be entered in for inventory items that are on order. Before entering in a purchase order, there's some preferences that should be discussed. And those can be found by going to File and Preferences. Under the section called Purchase Orders, there are two preferences for emailing and printing purchase orders. Those are discussed in a separate video on the topic of printing and emailing purchase orders. So you'll want to review that video for those selections. The two we're going to talk about is lock periods and require approval. Lock periods is usually set on the database tab. In Centerpoint, you do have the ability to lock your financial periods so that no transactions can be entered or edited in those periods. However, you might want to leave the period open for purchase orders so that you can still edit those purchase orders that are still open. So if you want to leave it open for purchase orders, you can go ahead and set this to yes. The other one that you'll want to make sure that you select is the one called requires approval. If you want to make sure that you have an approval process for your purchase orders before they can be turned into invoices or before they can be printed or emailed out to the vendor, you can select the option that you want to require approval. This is usually set on the database tab. Okay, you can enter in a purchase order without a vendor. However, you might want to require that a vendor be selected before you can approve that purchase order. And if you do, you'll set that setting to yes. If not, then you can set it to no. We can go ahead and save those preferences. Now, to enter in a purchase orders, there's three ways to do that. You can enter in purchase orders from purchase order entry, which we're going to discuss in this video shortly. You can enter in a new purchase order through purchase orders maintenance, which will also be discussed in this video. And the last way is to create a purchase order from a sales order, and there is a separate video on that topic. To get to purchase order data entry, we're going to go to Processes and Purchase Orders. And to go ahead and enter in a new purchase order, we're going to select our vendor. So I'm going to select the vendor Procast Supplies. It's going to increment and bring in the next purchase order number. It'll bring in the purchase order date. We do have a place where we can put in a date that it is required by. And if you want to be able to select who entered it, then you need to set up some names on your names list underneath Setup and Names. And when you enter in those names, I'm going to go to one of the ones that I've selected. When you enter in those names, you need to mark them as a purchaser. If they're not marked as a purchaser, then they won't be available to select in the Entered By box. Okay, so you'll want to make sure you set those up. On the right-hand side, then, you'll select the status for this purchase order, which is either going to be open or on hold. On hold purchase orders cannot be printed, they can't be emailed, and they can't be received, okay, until they're taken off the hold. Okay, you'll also have a place where you can select the expected shipping method, and it should default the terms from the setup of the vendor. If it doesn't, you can select the expected terms for the invoice that gets created. You can put in an expected delivery date, and then you'll select where you want it delivered to. Do you want it delivered to your company address, to a customer? And if you choose that, then you'll choose the customer's name and it'll fill in their address. You can have it select to other, which means that you'll manually type in the address in the fields down by where it says delivery address. And then the last option is to ship it to an inventory location. So if you select that, then you can select the inventory location you want it shipped to. I'm going to select the company address. Now, since I selected that I wanted to require an approval for this purchase order, my options to print and email the purchase order at the time of data entry are grayed out. If you did not have that approval process in place, it would default the printing and emailing settings from the vendor setup, but you can override them. Mine I can't change right now because I did say that I wanted to be able to approve those purchase orders first. I also have places to put in a memo field, and now I'm going to go to the Order tab to order the specific items. Now, if you don't have sales items or inventory items set up, you can select just an account here. I do have inventory items, so I'm going to select the first inventory item that we're purchasing, and we're going to purchase this Procast rod and reel. I'm going to go ahead and enter in how many of them that we're purchasing. I can change the unit of measure if I need to, and I can adjust the unit cost if it is not defaulting what is correct. Then I can go to the details button and I could enter in any of the details here that might apply. So this should go to the Profit Center of Fishing Equipment. My store is going to be my Minnesota store. That's my location. But my inventory location is also the Minnesota store. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. You might not be using inventory location, so you might not need to select that. When you do that, down at the bottom, it should show you how many you have on hand, how many are available, and so on. This is what we call the information grid. If you don't have inventory and you're not maintaining inventory, then you could turn off that information grid by going to Options and saying that you don't want to show the information grid. Next, I'm going to go on to my next item, which is going to be, I'm just going to order an additional item, and I'm just going to order one of it. And we are going to put it to the same profit center, to the same location, and the same inventory location. Then I'm going to click OK. And so now I've entered in my purchase order. I can keep adding additional items as needed. If I have a prepayment to this vendor and I want to apply that prepayment to this purchase order when it becomes an invoice, I can mark that I want to apply and how much do I want to apply to the invoice that gets created from this purchase order. Okay. When I'm done, I'll go ahead and click Save, and that takes care of how do we enter in a purchase order. Since we can't delete a purchase order from transaction search because it doesn't create a transaction, we need to have a maintenance screen for purchase orders. We can find that purchase order maintenance screen by going to Processes, Purchases, and Purchase Order Maintenance. The first thing you'll want to do is filter for the purchase orders that you want to see. So you can set up your own default filter by going to the Filter tab, or you can select from filters that are already out there. So if I wanted to see all of my purchase orders, including any closed or canceled purchase orders, I can go ahead and select all, and it'll show me all purchase orders. From this screen, if I wanted to edit a purchase order, I could highlight the purchase order and click Edit. Okay, that's going to bring up the Edit Entry screen. The Edit screen will allow me to make whatever changes I need to. I could add additional items to the order, change quantities, and make whatever changes I need to. The other thing that it will allow me to do is to select from additional statuses. So when I was in order entry, I could only choose open and on hold. Here, I can also close an entry, or I can cancel it. Okay, so I do have those options as well. You can create a new purchase order from this screen by clicking the New button. That'll bring up the purchase order entry screen, and I could enter in a new purchase order right from here. I'm going to go ahead and click Close on that. I can also delete any purchase order that I don't want on the list anymore, so I can highlight it and click delete. If you have a bunch of old purchase orders out there and you have no reason to maintain them anymore, by all means, you could highlight more than one by holding down either your control key or your shift key and highlighting those additional items and then deleting them so you can delete more than one at a time. Okay. And then the last option is to be able to copy a purchase order. So if you want to be able to copy a purchase order to a new purchase order with a new purchase order number and date, you can highlight an existing purchase order and click copy. It'll duplicate that purchase order, but it does give it a new purchase order number and a new purchase order date. And then I can make any changes I want to from there before I hit save. The other thing I just want to point out is that on this grid here, you will see that I've added a column called approved by, so I can see which purchase orders have been approved. If you have the approval process, you might want to do that. You can add additional columns to this grid by right-clicking on the grid and going to Add Remove Columns, and then choosing the columns that you want to add to this grid. So if you want to see more information, you can.